It started with a silence so powerful that even the cameras hesitated to blink. The world spotlight was set on Los Angeles, just days before the Grammy Awards 2026. Every headline was already predicting winners, every outlet talking about pop giants. But when Rose from Blackpink walked into that golden-lit interview room, something in the air shifted. Calm, poised, and dressed in a beige Yves Saint Laurent ensemble that whispered quiet luxury, she carried the kind of confidence only earned through storms. Across from her sat Bruno Mars, charismatic, unpredictable, and glowing with that signature mix of soul and swagger. No one expected what would unfold between them that day. At first, it was supposed to be a lighthearted pre-Grammy conversation. Music, artistry, inspiration. But then, Bruno Mars leaned closer to the mic, glanced at Rose, and said something that made the entire room pause. "You know," he began, "sometimes success hides the loneliness behind the spotlight. And when I heard your song, I felt that truth again." The crowd went silent. Rose blinked, just once, her calm composure flickering for a moment. Cameras caught that subtle reaction, the exact second the internet would soon obsess over. But this wasn't just an emotional exchange between two stars. It was a collision of two global brands, the synergy of K-pop elegance and American soul, merging in a moment that would redefine cultural influence. Behind the glamour, this was strategy. Both Rose Blackpink and Bruno Mars understood the game of visibility, the art of emotional connection before the Grammys. They weren't just artists, they were architects of attention. And attention in today's economy is currency. The industry knows moments like this don't happen by accident. When Rose entered the global stage as part of Blackpink, she became more than a performer. She became a symbol of global femininity, of modern branding precision. Every gesture, every outfit, every collaboration is data-backed marketing brilliance. Yves Saint Laurent didn't just choose her for beauty. They chose her for conversion power, emotional reach that translates into measurable influence. Bruno Mars, meanwhile, mastered a different but parallel game: timelessness. His career isn't just about chart hits. It's a brand ecosystem powered by nostalgia, mastery, and rarity. The interview lights glowing, Bruno Mars speaking softly about legacy, about what it costs to stay authentic when the world monetizes your image. "You can sell everything, but you can't sell your soul," he says. Rose's eyes glisten, but not with sadness. It's recognition. Because she knows that same war, balancing creativity and control, passion and precision, art and analytics. That's the real confession. Not love, not rivalry, but truth. The kind of truth that reminds you why people still believe in music. The moment every editor now calls the spark. Bruno Mars turns to Rose and says, "You remind me of the kind of artist who doesn't chase trends. You build them." That single sentence ignited every platform from X to YouTube. For Rose, that wasn't just a compliment. It was validation from one of the greatest stage performers alive. But here's where the strategy runs deeper. Moments like these amplify anticipation. The more authentic it feels, the more viral it becomes. The clip went live 48 hours before the Grammys. Within minutes, millions of fans dissected every glance, every smile, every pause. Analysts called it the perfect pre-Grammy branding moment. Because while others were releasing teasers or rehearsing red carpet looks, Rose was doing something smarter. She was creating emotion equity. That's when your story becomes the product and your authenticity becomes the asset that brands can't replicate. And yet, beneath all the business brilliance, something real lingered. When the interviewer asked Rose how she felt about the nomination, she didn't talk about trophies. She said softly, "I'm grateful, but I don't create to compete. I create to connect." That line alone became a global headline, one that universities would later cite in discussions about emotional marketing and creative leadership. Somewhere in that golden-lit room, Bruno Mars smiled again, this time not as a peer, but as someone who recognized his reflection in another artist. Because Rose's rise wasn't just a K-pop phenomenon, it was a masterclass in personal branding through vulnerability. In a world obsessed with perfection, she built her empire on transparency, sharing doubts, moments of silence, and fragments of honesty. That's what drives audience loyalty far beyond music charts. Halfway through the interview, there's a subtle tension, a silence that feels like a song waiting to begin. Bruno Mars picks up a glass of water, sets it down, and says with quiet conviction, "If there's one thing I've learned, it's that greatness isn't what people see, it's what you choose not to show." Rose nods. The room feels smaller now, more intimate. What was once a PR setup becomes something transcendent, two artists sharing the psychology of success. As the Grammy Awards approach, marketing analysts across Los Angeles and Seoul start dissecting the ripple effect. Rose's interview clips spike engagement across platforms by 240%, outperforming traditional media teasers. Fashion brands realign their social campaigns, recognizing that emotional storytelling now converts more than visual aesthetics. Bruno Mars, meanwhile, trends globally, but not for performance rumors. For wisdom. For authenticity. That's how you know the impact wasn't scripted. It was strategic truth captured in real time. And then, as the cameras faded, Rose gave one last smile. "Sometimes," she said, "music isn't about sound. It's about what you leave unspoken." The line echoed like poetry, elegant, elusive, unforgettable. That moment alone turned into one of the most rewatched clips before the Grammys. It wasn't a performance, yet it felt like one. Behind the curtain, her team knew this interview wasn't just content, it was positioning. Rose Blackpink had subtly reframed herself from idol to artist of influence, a psychological leap that brands dream of achieving. This is the unseen side of celebrity marketing, where art becomes narrative and narrative becomes value. Bruno Mars understood it too, because he'd done the same years earlier. When he turned timeless performance into timeless brand identity, the world saw an interview. But what actually happened was a transfer of legacy. Bruno Mars's confession wasn't romantic. It was professional admiration wrapped in honesty. And Rose's reaction wasn't scripted. It was real. That's why the internet couldn't look away. It wasn't just a conversation between two artists. It was a collision of mastery and meaning. In that brief moment, you could feel decades of experience meeting the future of sound. Bruno Mars spoke like a mentor, but Rose listened like a visionary. Someone who understood that emotion and economics can coexist. Cameras flashed, headlines raced, but she stayed composed, turning a simple dialogue into a statement of evolution. Because sometimes, the most powerful moments in music aren't sung. They're felt in silence. And as the lights dimmed, you could almost sense history reshaping itself. That quiet exchange between them wasn't just for fans. It was for every artist learning that grace, intelligence, and authenticity always outlast trends. And when the Grammy Awards 2026 finally began, one thing was already certain. Long before any envelope opened, the conversation between Roseanne Park and Bruno Mars had already won the world's attention. Because in an age where virality is engineered, authenticity still reigns as the ultimate luxury. And if you're here watching this, you've witnessed something rare, the intersection of emotion, influence, and elegance. Stay close, because what comes next from Rose Blackpink will redefine what global artistry means. Make sure subscribe now, not just to follow, but to understand the future of music and influence, where every note carries a story and every silence hides a strategy.